I want you to put yourself in a very specific and probably very uncomfortable scenario for a second.
Oh, this should be good.
Yeah, right. So imagine you've decided to tackle a new skill.
Okay.
Maybe it's a foreign language or a complex programming framework, or, maybe you're finally getting around to mastering something tactile, like baking sourdough bread.
The classic lockdown hobby.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you put in the hours, you consume the video tutorials, you listen to all the expert interviews, you read the
Links
articles.
to research.
Right. You are absorbing the material, you're nodding along, tracking the logic perfectly. The input makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then the rubber meets the road. You step up to the mixing bowl, or you open up a blank code editor,
Mm-hmm.
or, and this is the worst one, you are suddenly face to face with a native speaker of that language.
And you freeze.
You completely freeze. Your mind goes completely terrifyingly blank.
Yep.
That bridge between understanding the input and actually, executing the output,
Mhm.
it just evaporates.
It's awful. And it is the defining paradox of how we process information today.
Yeah.
We mistake passive recognition for active mastery. We just assume that because we can follow someone else's fluency, we somehow possess that fluency ourselves.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because that specific gap, that gap between knowing and doing, is the entire focus of the source material we are looking at today.
Right.
We've got our hands on a really fascinating internal strategy document. It's a master blueprint for episode 1 of an educational show called Learn English Hub.
And the really interesting part is the date,
Yes, it is slated for the year 2026.
which is fascinating.
It is. On paper, it looks like a standard script outline mixed with some growth metrics for an English teacher. But reading between the lines, it operates as a surprisingly blunt diagnosis of how our brains are feeling.
Failing to acquire skills, specifically.
Right, failing to acquire skills in an era defined by constant distraction and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, the creators of this 2026 document, they are highly self-aware. They aren't just outlining a language lesson here. They are essentially engineering a defense mechanism
A defense mechanism against what exactly?
against modern convenience. The text forces us to look at that tension between passive consumption and active output. It tackles the cognitive laziness that sets in when AI removes the friction of daily tasks.
And it outlines a very deliberate, almost aggressive media strategy to combat that laziness. Right?
Exactly. It's a fascinating playbook.
So what does this all mean for us, for you listening? Our mission today is to tear this blueprint apart and extract the underlying architecture of modern learning.
Let's do it.
And to do that, we have to look at the target audience the document describes, the 2026 learner.
The hyper-distracted 2026 learner.
Right out of the gate, the strategy text makes this definitive claim. It argues that a podcast-only strategy is the smartest move for this audience.
Because people heavily prefer what they call passive immersion.
Passive immersion. They want to listen while they are commuting or exercising or working, which honestly is super relatable. We all want to learn by osmosis on the treadmill.
Of course we do. And the document is identifying a very specific behavioral loop here. Passive immersion feels incredibly rewarding.
Because you feel productive.
Exactly. When you listen to someone effortlessly explain a concept or fluently speak a language, your brain gets to coast on their momentum.
You're just riding their coattails.
You recognize the words, you track the syntax, and you experience this sense of accomplishment. But, and this is the kicker, you do it without carrying the cognitive load of generating those ideas yourself.
Okay, let me push back on that strategy for a second, though.
Sure.
Because if the document openly acknowledges that the audience is highly distracted, they are literally lifting weights or dodging traffic while listening, why lean into that?
It seems counterintuitive.
Right. Isn't a podcast-only strategy just surrendering to the distraction? If you know someone isn't giving you their full attention, trying to teach them a complex skill like a new language seems like a losing battle from the very start.
It does look like a surrender on the surface, I'll give you that. But if we connect this to the bigger picture of behavioral design, it is actually a very pragmatic ambush.
Ooh, a pragmatic ambush. I like that. Explain that.
The creators know that demanding an hour of undivided attention at a desk is a non-starter in 2026.
Nobody has the time.
Or the attention span.
Exactly. The friction of scheduling that desk time is just too high. So they use passive immersion as a Trojan horse.
A Trojan horse. Okay, I'm tracking.
They accept the peripheral attention just to get into the listener's daily routine.
Mm-hmm.
The blueprint explicitly states that episode 1 has to immediately establish authority and set a specific vibe to capture this distracted audience.
So they are securing the real estate in the listener's ear during that passive time.
Yes, solely so they can deploy a mechanism that forces the listener into an active state later. Okay, that makes total sense. They are establishing a beachhead.
Precisely.
And once they have that attention, the document diagnoses the listener's primary pain point.
The big frustration.
Right. The blueprint outlines the main segment of this first episode, and they title it The Silent Wall.
The silent wall.
The script directions literally say, and I quote, "You watch movies, you listen to podcasts, you understand. Open your mouth to speak, your brain freezes."
Which brings us right back to the scenario we opened the deep dive with.
Exactly. It's that exact universal frustration. And then the text delivers this amazing metaphor. It says, you don't have a vocabulary problem. You have a retrieval speed problem. Your brain is a library with no index.
I love that line. That phrase, a library with no index, is honestly the crux of the entire document.
It really is. It completely reframes the learning process.
It does. Because when you rely entirely on passive listening, you are only exercising recognition memory.
Right. Recognition, not recall.
Exactly. The external source, the podcast host, the movie character, they provide the structure, the vocabulary, the grammar, and your brain simply verifies it.
Your brain just goes, yep, I know that word.
Right. But active output, that requires spontaneous retrieval.
Which is way harder.
Significantly harder. You have to conceptualize the thought, search your mental database, retrieve the specific components, arrange them correctly, and then physically articulate them.
All in real time.
All within milliseconds.
Okay, so think about your own house as that library. You spent years buying books, stacking them in different rooms.
Creating piles everywhere.
Yeah, piles on the nightstand, shelves in the living room. Now, if a friend comes over and asks, hey, do you own a book on French cooking? You can confidently say yes.
If you recognize the title.
Right. You understand 90% of the inventory in your house.
Yeah.
But that friend says, great, hand it to me right now. You have 2 seconds.
Pure panic.
The panic sets in. You have no idea if it's in the bedroom, the basement, or buried under a pile of mail.
The book is the vocabulary word.
Yes. Passive learning put the book somewhere in the house. But without the index, without a clear, optimized path to locate and retrieve that specific item instantly, the fact that you theoretically own the book is completely useless in a real-time conversation.
Because the other person is just standing there waiting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are just staring at you while you frantically sprint through the rooms of your mind.
And the social pressure of that pause is immense. It's crushing.
It's the worst feeling.
The document highlights this to emphasize a really important point. Acquiring more vocabulary, basically. Buying more books for the house will not solve the problem.
You don't need more books, you need a catalog system.
Right. The strategy has to shift entirely toward building the index. It is about creating the necessary neurological pathways to ensure instantaneous retrieval.
Which brings us to a really crucial element in the text. Why has building this index become so much more difficult for the 2026 learner?
This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, this brings in the AI factor. And honestly, this might be the most culturally observant part of this entire blueprint. I agree. The text instructs the host to explicitly mention that AI translators have made us lazy.
It doesn't hold back.
It really doesn't. And because of this AI laziness, it claims that manual speaking practice is now more valuable than ever. It even teases a future episode titled Business English for the AI Era.
Which says a lot about the state of the workplace in 2026.
Totally. I mean, we constantly talk about AI automating our emails or generating images, but this document is pointing to AI fundamentally altering our cognitive fitness.
Well, let's look at that word lazy. The word lazy in this context isn't a critique of character.
It's not a moral failing.
No, it's an observation of biology. The human brain is an incredibly efficient energy manager.
It wants to conserve calories.
Exactly. When a piece of technology removes the friction from a process, the brain literally stops expending the calories required to build the neural pathways for that process.
So if real-time AI translators can effortlessly bridge the gap between 2 languages,
then the biological necessity to build the internal index vanishes. The brain just offloads the retrieval process to the machine.
wow. So we have literally outsourced our mental index to the cloud.
Pretty much.
What strikes me is the use of the word manual as the antidote. The document insists on manual speaking practice.
Yeah, that word choice is very deliberate.
It mirrors a trend we've seen in other areas, right? As the world becomes increasingly frictionless and digital, people suddenly crave tactile, high-friction hobbies.
The sourdough bread.
Exactly. It's why people spend entire weekends working on old cars or doing complex woodworking instead of just buying the finished product.
The friction is the point.
Yes, the friction is the point. And this blueprint is applying that exact concept to cognitive labor. The physical struggle of forcing your brain to recall a word without the AI safety net is framed as a deliberate artisanal practice.
And that framing is essential for their pitch. If we look ahead to their teaser for business English for the AI era, it raises an incredibly important question.
What's that?
Well, if an AI in 2026 can perfectly translate the vocabulary, syntax, and grammar of a complex business negotiation in real time, what purpose does the human language learner serve?
Right. Why bother learning it at all?
The text implies that the value of learning is no longer about the pure transactional exchange of data.
Because the machine can do that faster and better.
Precisely. The value shifts entirely to the nuance the AI cannot execute.
Like what?
The emotional intelligence, the cultural rapport, the intentional pauses, the tone of voice. The manual effort is the only way to convey genuine, unautomated intent.
That perfectly sets the stakes. Okay, so we have the diagnosis. Passive immersion traps us in recognition, leaving us with a mental library devoid of an index.
Right.
And frictionless technology like AI actively discourages us from building that index.
Exactly.
So how does the blueprint propose we actually fix it?
They get very tactical here.
They do. The text outlines a really rigorous solution they call shadowing 2.0.
Shadowing 2.0.
The host in the script instructs the listener to pause the audio every 3 sentences. They must then repeat exactly what was just said, but with a major catch.
It's not just repeating the words.
Right. They have to mimic the host's tone, speed, and emotion perfectly. They even include a rule they call a hub tip, which says, if you can't say it at my speed, you don't own the phrase yet.
Shadowing 2.0 is the mechanism designed to force the listener out of the passive state. This is where the blueprint demands actual neurological conditioning.
Neurological conditioning. Walk me through that.
Well, by requiring the learner to mimic tone, speed, and emotion, the exercise transcends simple vocabulary repetition. It becomes a multi-sensory physical requirement.
Because you're acting, essentially.
You are forcing the brain to coordinate the physical articulation, match the auditory pitch, and replicate the emotional resonance simultaneously.
That's a lot of plates spinning at once.
It is. And that intense coordination is the exact friction required to forge the pathways of the index.
I want to look at the specific constraint of pausing every 3 sentences.
Yeah, the rule of 3.
That number feels very intentional. If the instructions said to pause after every single sentence, the cognitive load would be way too low.
You'd just be parroting.
Right, you would just be relying on immediate echo memory, parroting back a series of sounds without processing the structural logic of the phrase.
But if you try to hold an entire paragraph.
Exactly. If you try to hold a whole paragraph in your head before repeating it, your short-term memory completely overflows and the details collapse. You'll forget half of it.
3 sentences sits right on that threshold.
The sweet spot.
It is the sweet spot. It forces you to hold a complete, complex thought in your working memory, internalize the rhythm of the grammar, and then physically push it out.
It's a calculated stress test for the memory.
It really is. And the standard they set for success is equally demanding. If you can't say it at my speed, you don't own the phrase yet.
The speed test.
The document uses speed as the ultimate diagnostic tool. If a learner is mentally translating a sentence word by word, their speed will inevitably drop.
They'll stutter.
They will stutter, they will hesitate, they'll use filler words. Achieving the natural speed of the native speaker proves that the retrieval process is unhindered.
It proves the index is working.
It demonstrates that the index is functioning correctly.
The distinction between borrowing and owning knowledge is really sharp here. When we passively listen, we are essentially renting the fluency from the podcast host.
You're visiting their library.
Right. The knowledge lives in their head. We are just taking a guided tour of it. Shadowing 2.0 is the process of buying the property.
That's a great way to put it.
But the creators of the blueprint don't stop there. They seem to recognize that even Shadowing 2.0 has a flaw.
Because it's still guided.
Exactly. It is still a guided exercise. You are still relying on a script provided by someone else.
So they rip the training wheels off.
They do. They introduce the final stage of the strategy, It's a homework assignment they call the 5-minute monologue.
This is brutal but brilliant.
The instruction is for the listener to open a voice memo app on their phone immediately after the episode ends and record a 1-minute monologue talking about their day.
Just 1 minute.
1 minute. The document explicitly states this is designed to force the brain to find words without a script.
This is where the text introduces the friction of the unscripted mind. Shadowing 2.0 builds the mechanical pathways, right? But the 5-minute monologue tests them in a chaotic environment.
Real-world conditions.
It bridges the gap between the controlled laboratory of the podcast and the unpredictable demands of an actual conversation. By removing the host's voice entirely, the learner is deprived of their safety net.
I have to admit, I tried something similar once when I was trying to brush up on my Spanish.
Oh, yeah. How did that go?
Terrible. I thought I'll just record myself talking for a minute. You stare at that blinking red light on your phone app, and the terror is real.
It's intimidating.
All the sophisticated vocabulary I thought I knew just vanished. I played it back, and I sounded like a confused toddler asking for a snack.
It is a brutal, humbling experience.
So humbling, because it exposes exactly how poor your retrieval speed actually is. But the genius of this specific prompt in the text is the subject matter.
Yes. Talking about your day.
They don't ask you to summarize a news article or explain a complex theory. They ask you to talk about your day.
That constraint is absolutely vital for the pedagogical design.
So.
Well, if the prompt asks the learner to discuss an abstract concept, the cognitive load would fracture.
You'd be doing too much at once.
Exactly. They would be struggling simultaneously to formulate a complex opinion and to retrieve the foreign vocabulary. It's too much friction.
But talking about your day.
By restricting the topic to their own day, the conceptual load is reduced to zero. The ideas are already fully formed. You know what you had for breakfast, you know who you met with. The only task remaining is linguistic retrieval. Furthermore, the vocabulary required to describe your daily routine is the highest frequency, most personally relevant language you can acquire.
It's the stuff you actually need to say.
The exercise forces the learner to index the exact words they are most likely to need in reality.
It is a brilliant piece of micro-friction, and they only ask for 1 minute. It's not an essay. It's not a 30-minute conversation.
That's manageable.
It's a 60-second burst of unscripted output immediately following the guided practice while those neural pathways are still engaged.
And because it's done into a phone, it integrates flawlessly into the busy 2026 lifestyle they established at the very beginning of the document.
You can do it while walking the rest of the way to the office.
Exactly. This transition from the pedagogical mechanics leads directly into the final section of the strategy document.
The structural side of things.
Right. The text shifts focus to the architecture of the media itself. It outlines 3 specific growth tips for the Learn English Hub.
Let's run through them.
The first is offering 2 versions of every episode, a slow version and a fast natural version.
Okay.
The second is the use of interactive show notes, specifically providing timestamps for 5 key idioms.
Got it.
And the third revolves around visual elements on YouTube. It suggests using a moving waveform or a static image of a cozy studio.
Okay, let's spend some time on this because it reveals a ton about how content consumption has evolved.
It really does.
The first tip, the dual speed strategy. That is a direct acknowledgement that audiences are not monolithic.
Right.
If you are teaching a skill and you only provide one pace, you are instantly alienating half of your potential listeners.
It's a Goldilocks problem.
Exactly. If the host speaks at a natural, rapid clip, the beginners hit that silent wall immediately and give up.
But if the host speaks slowly and deliberately, the advanced learners get bored and tune out.
Right. By providing both speeds, the creators give the listener the agency to select their own level of friction.
It's a highly modular approach to content delivery, and that modularity is heavily reinforced by the second tip, the interactive show notes with timestamps.
Okay, wait. I want to challenge this point.
Go for it.
The document spent the entire first half arguing that AI makes us lazy because it removes friction,
Right.
and that we desperately need manual cognitive labor,
Yes.
but providing timestamps so a listener can skip directly to the 5 key idioms. Isn't that just a shortcut? Doesn't that remove the necessary friction of listening to the whole lesson and doing the work? It feels like it contradicts their core thesis by catering to an ultra-short attention span.
That is a very valid critique. But we have to separate the friction of discovery from the friction of execution.
Discovery versus execution. Unpack that.
The creators recognize that their audience might only have 4 free minutes before a meeting.
Back to the busy 2026 learner.
Right. If the only option is a 30-minute linear audio file, the listener won't engage at all. They'll just skip the day entirely.
So they get zero practice.
Exactly. The timestamps remove the friction of discovery. They allow the listener to treat the podcast not as a narrative, but as a searchable modular database.
Oh, I see.
However, once the listener clicks that timestamp and finds the idiom, the expectation is that they still apply the manual friction of shadowing 2.0 and the unscripted monologue to that specific piece of information.
Okay. The delivery mechanism is frictionless, but the cognitive integration remains manual.
Precisely. You streamline the access, but maintain the rigor of the practice.
That makes total sense. Now, the final growth tip is the one that really caught my eye.
The visual element.
Yeah. They explicitly note that even though this is a podcast-only strategy designed for passive audio consumption, they must maintain a visual presence on YouTube.
Which is standard for podcasts now, but look at how they do it.
Right. They don't suggest setting up a multi-camera shoot of the host teaching at a whiteboard. They suggest a moving waveform or a static image of a cozy studio.
Yeah.
Why does an audio-first strategy need a picture of a cozy room?
This ties back to the requirement from the very beginning of the document. The need to establish authority and set a specific vibe.
The vibe check.
Exactly. If a learner is engaging in the vulnerable act of learning a language, where they are guaranteed to make mistakes, to stutter, to sound foolish while doing their shadowing 2.0, they require a psychological environment that feels safe.
They need to feel comfortable messing up.
A visual of a cozy studio is not arbitrary. It is a carefully selected aesthetic designed to signal warmth, intimacy, and a lack of judgment. It transforms a digital audio file into a perceived physical space.
It builds a parasocial relationship.
Yes.
You aren't just listening to a sterile lecture. You are stepping into a welcoming environment. It lowers the defensive barriers.
And if the space feels safe, the listener is far more likely to take the uncomfortable leap of recording that 1-minute unscripted monologue.
The visual strategy is working entirely in service of the behavioral goal.
It also establishes credibility. A well-designed visual, even a static one, communicates a level of professional intentionality. It tells the busy 2026 learner that this content is curated and trustworthy.
Which is essential when you're asking them to commit their limited time and effort to your specific methodology.
You have to earn that trust.
Looking back at the entire arc of this document, the progression is incredibly tight.
It is brilliantly structured.
We started by examining the trap of modern learning. The illusion that flooding our brains with passive input will somehow magically result in the ability to execute a skill.
The passive immersion paradox.
Right. We pinpointed the underlying failure, which is the mental library overflowing with recognized information, but completely lacking a functional index.
A library without an index is just a warehouse.
Exactly. And we looked at how frictionless technology, like AI translators, actively discourages us from building that index.
Because the brain won't burn calories it doesn't have to.
Then the blueprint provided the manual tools for recovery. The precise, demanding mimicry of shadowing 2.0, where matching speed and tone is the proof of ownership.
You have to own the phrase.
And finally, the terrifying but essential leap into the unscripted monologue.
The 5-minute monologue.
The document outlines a fundamental shift in responsibility, doesn't it?
It really does.
Ow.
It moves the learner from being a passive receptacle, hoping to absorb knowledge by proximity, to becoming the active architect of their own retrieval systems.
In an era where input is infinite and effortless, the strategy text proves that the only thing retaining genuine value is the deliberate, manual effort of output.
Beautifully said.
Which brings us entirely back to you, the listener.
Yeah.
Think about your own internal library right now.
What does your library look like?
Consider that skill you have been learning for the past 6 months. Are you just passively stocking the shelves? Are you wandering through the rooms of your mind, hoping you'll stumble across the right piece of information when the moment demands it?
Probably not the best strategy.
Or are you actively manually building the index? Are you putting yourself in positions where you have to retrieve the information without a script at a natural speed under the pressure of real-time execution?
Because if you aren't.
Because the reality is, if you aren't doing the manual labor to build the index, the library is practically useless.
It's harsh, but it's true. And this source material leaves us with a final concept to consider, drawn directly from its insistence on mimicking tone and emotion.
Oh, this is the provocative part.
You've established that the strategy assumes AI in 2026 can effortlessly handle basic transactional translation.
Right. The machines can convey the raw data of your sentence perfectly.
Right. So if technology can flawlessly and instantly translate the literal meaning of our words across any language barrier, it raises a rather profound question.
Lay it on us.
Is it possible that in the very near future, the only truly valuable reason left for humans to endure the grueling manual labor of learning another language at all is purely to convey those messy, unautomatable human emotions?
Wow.
Think about it.